there's something wrong with this person.
Well, it's interesting because people take superhero movies seriously now.
That rotoscoping is a great metaphor for essentially what the Marvel movies became.
People in Hollywood, they're just not stable human beings.
The Avengers cast has officially gone rogue. And this time, the villain isn't Thanos, it's Disney's own CEO. From public callouts to behind-the-scenes betrayals, some of Marvel's biggest stars are exposing the dark side of the studio that made them global icons. And trust us, it's not just about money. This is about broken promises, exploitation, and years of being used until they finally snapped.
I made mistakes choosing between what the world wants you to be.
The Avengers have finally snapped. Not at Thanos, but at Disney. Yes, you heard that right. The very actors who helped turn Marvel into a multi-billion-dollar empire are now calling out the Mouse House for what they say is nothing short of betrayal. From lawsuits and pay cuts to public humiliation and corporate greed, it's not just drama, it's war behind the scenes of your favorite superhero franchise.
Scarlett Johansson, the star of the Marvel superhero film Black Widow, is suing the Walt Disney Company over its simultaneous release of the movie in cinemas and on its streaming service.
I'm gonna have PTSD from this junket. I mean, honestly,
Really?
You're doing so.
It all started when Scarlett Johansson dropped a legal bomb on Disney in 2021. She sued the company for breaching her Black Widow contract after they shoved the movie onto Disney+, a move that cost her tens of millions. Instead of owning up, Disney tried to shame her. They publicly leaked her $20 million salary, hoping fans would side with them. But that backfired hard. Groups like Time's Up and Women in Film slammed the company for trying to paint her as greedy, a tone-deaf, sexist PR disaster. Scarlett still walked away with a $40+ million settlement. But the damage was done. It gets worse. Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, said Disney straight up lied. They promised his pay would increase with each movie, then backed out when it came time to honor the deal. Same story with Don Cheadle. He was given 2 hours to decide on a 6-picture contract. 2 hours during his kid's birthday party. Sign now or lose everything. That's not a negotiation. It's a threat.
At the end of every day, I lie awake at night and I think about all the things I almost said, and it gives me panic.
And while the A-listers are getting slapped with lowball offers, the regular cast members at Disney parks aren't faring any better. In 2025, Disney placed 45 workers on unpaid leave, telling them they'd be fired in 30 days if they couldn't fix their paperwork. No help, no humanity, just a corporate cold shoulder. These weren't seasonal hires. They were people who gave years to Disney's image of magic and dreams. And yet, they were discarded like props after a show.
Much clearer kind of this was who the character was in the first time I played it. And then out of just like, oh, I want to do something different, it slowly just became me screwing around and kind of having fun. And
what's happening here isn't a one-off misstep. It's a full-blown pattern of Disney squeezing everyone, stars, staff, creators, for maximum profit, while offering minimum respect. These actors gave Disney their prime years, their bodies, their loyalty. And in return, they got ghosted, gaslit, or gutted. And now, they're done staying quiet. Scarlett stood up. Jeremy spoke out. Hemsworth voiced his regrets. And fans are listening. Because if these people, rich, famous, powerful, are being treated like this, what does that say about the rest of Disney's workforce? The real twist? It's not Thanos tearing the Avengers apart. It's the studio that created them.
I don't know. I'm not saying I'm completely the character, but there's more of me in the character now than ever, I think, just because that's the most honest place you can operate from, especially in knowing everybody. I feel like our own interpersonal or
Chris Hemsworth didn't just throw shade. He dropped a whole thunderbolt when he admitted that Thor, Love and Thunder turned him into a parody of himself. Yeah, Thor, the god of thunder, reduced to a walking meme. And no, this isn't fanboy overreaction. This came straight from Hemsworth's mouth. After playing the character for over a decade, he flat out said he was creatively drained and frustrated by what Disney had done to his once epic role. And it's not just Thor who's had enough. Let's talk about the dirty money games behind the scenes. Because when you dig into Disney's contract tactics, the whole thing starts looking like a villain origin story. Flashback to 2013. The Avengers had just pulled in a jaw-dropping $1.5 billion at the global box office. You'd think the stars of that film would be celebrating with raises and bonuses, right? Nope. According to Disney's math, the movie barely broke even. Yep, they told the cast and their agents that despite all the global success, there was just no money left to give out raises. Welcome to Hollywood accounting, where billions in profit somehow vanish into marketing costs.
Is just as you've all said, he said the right thing to the right person at all times.
Yeah.
Then Marvel CEO Isaac Perlmutter allegedly played defense, doing everything he could to block pay increases. He stirred up drama and even tried to make the actors seem ungrateful. Meanwhile, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, sat back and let it happen. He didn't step in. He didn't back the actors. He just let his team squeeze every dollar while the stars carried the entire brand on their backs.
It just changes, and I also know that I don't really know that much, and it's different every time anyway.
That's when Robert Downey Jr. finally stepped in. RDJ was making tens of millions per film by then, but instead of soaking up the cash and staying silent, he said he wouldn't return unless his fellow Avengers got paid fairly. This wasn't just a power move, it was about principle. Some of his co-stars were pulling in as little as $200,000, a total insult when you're part of a billion-dollar machine. Downey drew the line, and suddenly, Disney had to play ball. But even then, resentment lingered. And the pattern of exploitation? It didn't stop.
They asked me to do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. You step away from things, because like, my daughter's a priority.
Fast forward to Jeremy Renner, and it only gets more heartbreaking. After over a decade in the MCU and leading his own Disney Plus series, you'd think Renner had earned his stripes. But then came his near-fatal accident in January 2023. So what does Disney do to reward that kind of loyalty and courage? They offered him half his original pay for Hawkeye Season 2. Not less work, not fewer episodes, just half the money with no explanation.
Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
Renner didn't sugarcoat it. He said straight up, because I got run over? You think I'm half Jeremy now? Now, if you thought it was just the actors getting the short end of the stick, buckle up. Because what's happening behind the scenes, like way behind the green screens, is a full-blown crisis.
Like now, superhero movies are films that happen to be about superheroes. Whereas, you know, for the longest time, superhero movies were bullshit. You know, the TV shows were kind of clunky, they were campy.
Let's start with the VFX disaster zone. You'd think the people making Thanos snap half the universe away would get some respect, right? Nope. Artists like Drew Gavil and Joe Pavlo, who've worked on huge Marvel films, have come out swinging. They've exposed how Marvel demands multiple versions of effects for the same scene at the same time without paying extra. That's right. One version for the theatrical release, another for streaming, another for China, another with slight brightness tweaks because some executive changed their mind halfway through.
Get lucky. As a matter of fact, the whole Marvel universe, possibly without exception, just happens to be a really well, what do you call that when you put together something curated?
And what do the artists get in return? Breakdowns, burnout, broken marriages, long nights of rendering final boss fights while surviving on Red Bull and ramen. Joe Pavlo literally said VFX workers are treated like cannon fodder, chewed up and spat out by a billion-dollar empire that's too busy counting profits to notice the human cost. And speaking of profit, have you seen Disneyland's ticket prices lately? Over $200 a day just to walk through the gates and wait 90 minutes to ride a spinning teacup. Meanwhile, in 2024, Disneyland's own cast members voted a staggering 99% in favor of a strike. Why? Because they can't afford to live. Let that sink in. Mickey Mouse is charging you hundreds per day while the folks inside the suit are applying for food stamps. The irony is painful. Disney built its empire on dreams come true, but for the people actually making the dreams, it's more like a waking nightmare. And sadly, it's not just underpaid VFX artists or cast members getting steamrolled. Big names, legacy actors, and loyal talent are walking away too, all because Disney can't seem to keep a promise. The fallout from this kind of treatment is starting to show. The shiny, squeaky clean Disney image is collapsing in real time. Take Snow White, the remake that was supposed to be a slam dunk. Instead, it turned into a $270 million migraine. The movie barely scraped together $87 million opening weekend.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
And then there's the Rachel Zegler situation. She played Snow White, and instead of charming audiences, her press tour triggered a social media firestorm. People on the left thought she disrespected Disney classics. But here's where it gets poetic. The very Avengers that made Disney a global powerhouse. They're fighting back. Not with CGI explosions, but with real-life lawsuits, public interviews, and emotional confessions. Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Johnny Depp, they're all saying the same thing. We were used. And the fans? They're not just watching, they're choosing sides. Because for a company that built its empire on fairy tales, it's starting to feel like the real villain isn't wearing a cape or a gauntlet. It's sitting in the Disney boardroom, counting pennies while the entire house of magic starts to crumble. And unless something changes fast, the next thing to vanish might not be a character or a movie, it might be Disney's soul. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.